They're even bringing in some barbershop choir or something. Uncle Jeff's got a nephew in the choir, and isn't your Uncle Jeffrey senile? Andrew interrupted. Sharon laughed, finally looking up from her spaghetti. I heard all your aunts and uncles were losing their marbles. I don't know, to be honest, Pete laughed. My mom seems to think so, although she's 93, and I'm not sure of her marble count. You know, actually, it has been nearly 30 years, Betty. Now that you say it, you're right, probably 35 years. When my grandfather died, I saw them all from across the church at the funeral. Sharon had already moved on, not registering the funeral detail. Okay, so if it's been 35 years, why wouldn't you want to go? It's Christmas and it'll be nice, Betty jumped in. Just show up, sing happy birthday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Bob's your uncle. Andrew couldn't resist. It's actually Jeffrey is the uncle. But Pete seemed to be in another world, cutting up his spaghetti so he wouldn't have to roll it on his fork. No one liked him doing that, but the family didn't complain about it anymore. It was like when he wore his long white socks with those brown sandals. Everyone had just given up. When Pete finally came back from the stargaze, he found the kids, even Mary, waiting for him to say something about this party. Okay, here goes. And I know this is going to sound petty, Pete began sluggishly, but I'm not sure how well I'm going to do at this shindig. I can't say I actually like any of these people because Andrew dropped his fork. You don't like your own family? Pete hesitated, not sure what to tell the kids. What was the father's duty here? Honestly, okay, here goes. They're a mean bunch. All of them, my 3 uncles and those 2 aunts, and my grandparents, they were off the charts, just nasty, nasty. Nasty, just nasty. Try junior high, Dad, Sharon said. Sure sounds junior high like, Betty chimed in. Nasty? I know, Pete smiled uneasily. It happened when I was 4 and 5 and 7 and 8. And well, the truth is, all through my childhood, it never ended. It was always like warfare. Even this conversation and these memories are conjuring. It's making me feel. Pete stopped. It would be like walking back in time to a place that was difficult. Sharon sat up a little straighter. Like PSTA? What? Andrew looked amazed. Betty swooped in with the correction. That's PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Andrew was beside himself. You were in that Nazi war, Dad? Tell us about... No, of course he wasn't in that war. Betty scolded Andrew again. Dad's not 95. Right, Dad? Betty couldn't help herself. And then back to Andrew. Those aunts and uncles are 95. Holy smokes, Andrews. What's the matter with you? Mary quickly interjected and asked everyone to take a deep breath. I didn't know any of this, Pete, she said. Yeah, it was every Sunday we drove up to Open Oma's place in Red Deer, Pete explained. My mom's parents had immigrated, and well, all their kids grew up, and it was expected that they would come back to the farm Sunday afternoons with their families. All their kids. My mom was the 3rd oldest child, and there were 6 of them, and then their kids all came. One big happy clan, except it wasn't so happy. I think my discontented grandparents wanted them there, Pete theorized, just so they could reprimand their kids one by one. They just couldn't help themselves. Opa and Oma were convinced that my mom had married the wrong guy. And I remember them ridiculing my dad with subtle and not too subtle insults and jabs. Soon their Betty said angrily. Andrew laughed. Talk about no present agony to sheer hockey stick joy, back to ketchup stain humiliation. Yeah, well, you got that right, Andrew. Pete laughed. Ketchup stain humiliation. I remember my uncle shaking his head in disgust. But then Betty said angrily, kind of cool. Andrew laughed. Talk about Pete no present agony and took to breath. Sheer hockey stick joy. Aunt back Margaret to ketchup stain humiliation. Must have been watching me. Yeah, well, you got that right, Andrew. Hide that Pete laughed. On my shirt. Ketchup stain humiliation. Maybe she'd been watching the whole time. I remember my uncle shaking his head. Who's Aunt Margaret? Sharon asked. Betty said angrily, kind of cool. Andrew laughed. Jeffrey's wife. Talk about no present agony and to sheer hockey stick joy. Back Margaret, to ketchup stain humiliation. Watching me. Kind of yeah, well, really. You got that right, Andrew. She came right over. He laughed. Ketchup stain humiliation. Put her arm around me. I remember my uncle shaking his head. Who's Aunt Margaret? Andrew looked. Sharon asked. Betty said angrily, kind of cool. Andrew laughed. So great about that. Her blouse, Pete started, was stained red. She had a splotch on her shirt in the same place my shirt had been dripped on. Doesn't sound like an accident, Sharon said. Yeah, we both had these ridiculous red stains, Pete smiled. Aunt Margaret and I started talking hockey. I'm not sure exactly. I don't remember much. But she sure knew more about hockey than my dad did. We both stared at the duct tape like it had chicken pox. I had no idea what happened to Opa or Aunt Jeffrey. Kind of forgot about them. Wow, was all Betty said. She was staring at her father. Sharon grinned and said, "That is cool, Dad."
Spent a lot of Christmas mornings staring at fake trees in a home of decorations trying to cover its disease. All the wrappings full of poison and black decay and wreaths. Behind the thing that we called Christmas was a world no one could see. Christmas time was giving, but all we felt was shame. And sitting around the table was a childlike joy thin stained. Always hearing that feeling that we want to know but don't. But still, year after year, we kept clinging to a hope. Maybe next year we won't have to feel this way. Maybe next year things will finally have changed. Is there something waiting just 1 year away, where things will finally be okay? Maybe next year, Christmas Day. Spent a lot of Christmas mornings wondering what was wrong, yearning for the promise that was hidden in the songs. Didn't care about the presents that were left there on the floor. Always scared to say what we really wanted to ask for. That maybe next year we won't have to feel this way. Maybe next year things will finally have changed. It's been a time when something real will stay, and things will finally be okay. Maybe next year, Christmas Day.
Sharon grinned and said, what did she say? She said, "That is cool, Dad." "Yeah, Sharon," Pete agreed. "That is cool for sure. But the only reason I'm telling you all this is because..." Pete stopped. "I just wanted you to know that this Uncle Jeffrey birthday next week brings back a lot of anxiety for me. That's all." "But you're an adult now, Dad," Sharon said. "Yeah, I know." Pete started sheepishly. I should be, but I feel a little, well, I feel a little like that 6-year-old again. I'm sorry, I feel a little embarrassed by that. But I vowed a long time ago that when I got older and had my own family, you guys, I would be done with that clan, and I've avoided... Pete stopped again. And I've been asked to give this little speech on our behalf. Me being the oldest grandchild and all. But I'm not sure I want to do it or how honest I can be. Betty nodded. "Yeah," she said, I kind of get that. Sharon jumped in. "Well, we'll go with you." No, Pete countered it. "You don't have to do that. It's a long ways up to Edmonton." "Yes, we do," Betty agreed with Sharon. "We're family. We're your family. We're sticking together. We're always sticking together." "I'm down with that," Andrew smiled. "I want to meet this senile Uncle Jeffrey. Give him what for?" Mary smiled. "Decided then. Who wants some dessert?" The singers were on their first break and heading back to their seats. By the time Pete, Mary, and the kids walked through the front door of Evergreen Gardens, home for the young at heart, Uncle Jeffrey's clan had rented the large party room towards the back of the grand facility. From the rumble of voices and the occasional peals of laughter, the family had no trouble finding its way down the hall to the gathering. Barely into the room, to the right of the door, there was a pile of wrapped gifts, dotted with birthday greeting cards, all strewn around a Christmas tree, packed with way too many decorations. Surely there was a tree trapped and smothered beneath all those lights, the tinsel and garlands and ribbons and hundreds of plastic ornaments and stars and angels everywhere. Pete felt a shiver run down his back. All that wrapping paper. Mary was nestling their present and gift into the mix of colorful debris when Aunt Hilda came limping over, hugging them all, asking them who they were. "You look just like your mother," Aunt Hilda praised Mary. And Mary indeed did look like her mother, but Aunt Hilda had never met Mary's mother. Mary being an in-law and all. Pete watched Aunt Hilda eyeing the wrapping paper and wondered if Uncle Phil was close by. The family was still at the entrance when Pete's mom raced over and thanked the family for making the trip. "All of you came," she squealed excitedly, clapping her hands. Then she drew closer to Pete, whispering with an edge of conspiracy, "Everyone here has lost their marbles. Just smile a lot and you'll get by. I hope you remembered your speech. You'll be so good." Pete had been laboring on that speech all week. He had written it and rewritten it a dozen times. He wanted to bring some truth-telling to the clan, but wordsmithing was not his specialty, nor was he much of a speaker, so his mother's encouragement terrified him all the more. But she had already bounded away to say hello to somebody else. Pete's mother was a bounder. The family still hadn't much left the door opening when a frantic-looking woman came striding up to Pete. "Do you know where the bathrooms are?" she demanded, exasperated. "No one seems to know. Why would they hide where the toilets are? Everyone needs to go to the bathroom." Pete admitted that he didn't know. "You don't know that everyone needs to go to the bathroom?" she demanded, rather astonished. "You work here. You should know where the toilets are." Pete warily pointed the woman out the room into the foyer. "I'm sure there's one out there somewhere, miss," Pete said. The woman stormed away and called over her shoulder, "Don't call me miss." "Great start, Dad," Sharon laughed. "Was she one of the aunts?" "I really don't know," Pete said. "I can't say I recognize too many people. I only recognized Aunt Hilda because she was eyeing the wrapping paper." Just then, a middle-aged woman, dressed in nurse's garb, came streaking through the gathering towards the entrance door. "Has anyone seen an elderly lady, an elderly woman?" she said eagerly, and then looking at Pete hopefully, "I believe she had a red dress on." "Yes, actually, I believe so," Pete said cheerfully, happy to be of service. "I believe she just went through that door into the foyer. She was looking for a—" "What?" the attendant scolded. "There's a reason there's a lock on the door and there's a warning sign." She stomped through the entrance. "She could be anywhere by now," she said, glaring back at Pete, and then looking both ways, she darted to the left. "What's the matter with you?" Sharon laughed again and looked up at Pete. "Home run after home run, Dad. You're hitting it out of the park." Pete and Sharon were still pretty much stuck at the entrance when a man roughly the same age as Pete approached. "You must be Pete," he said, stretching out his hand. "I'm Phil's middle child, Kevin. I'm your younger cousin." I've heard about you. You don't come much to these gatherings, do you? Yeah, Pete began. I'm sorry about that. It's good to be here now, though. This is my daughter, Sharon. We're looking forward to your speech, he said, already on his way to meet someone he recognized by the coffee table. Family is most important. Clans have got to stick together. They do, Pete whispered down to Sharon, who hadn't left his side. The two finally began making their way into the large room. Some 40 to 50 people were sitting around tables or standing in small circles or leaning on walkers. Which one is Uncle Jeffrey? Sharon whispered like she was revealing the password on her cell phone. I want to be there when you say hello. Sharon's question was quickly answered a second later when a number of people began singing Happy Birthday. They were gathered, semicircled, around an elderly man slumped in a wheelchair. His chair looked like the size of a cement truck compared to its occupant. That must be the birthday boy, Betty whispered, joining Pete and Sharon, moving towards the singers. This is the worst version of Happy Birthday I've ever heard. After various shouts of how old are you now and hip hip hooray, folks began to disperse like water ripples to parts of the room. Some folks made their way back to the pool table at the far end. Some sat down again around cloth-covered tables. One of the cousins announced that a cherry cake would be arriving in 15 minutes. They must be trucking it in from downtown, Betty whispered to Sharon. As the crowd thinned around Uncle Jeffrey, Pete found a moment to approach him. His uncle appeared quite overstimulated by all the attention. Who are you? He hollered as Pete crouched in front of him. I'm Pete. I'm the oldest grandson, or the oldest grandchild, or the oldest cousin I guess. You're not sure who you are? Which one is it? Who are you? Uncle Jeffrey demanded, evidently hard of hearing. Oh, wait. You look just like my dad. He's around here somewhere. It's my birthday, you know. I'm Pete. I'm here to congratulate you on your birthday, Pete said, smiling. What? I'm here to congratulate you on your birthday. Pete raised his voice, sounding a little angry, which was not his intent. It's my birthday, Uncle Jeffrey shouted back, not yours. And we're all happy for your many, many years, Pete complimented, trying to remain calm and above all, quiet. Uncle Jeffrey attempted to shift in his position. Well, you try being 95, stuck in this chair, he complained loudly. I just ate and it tasted like a rubber chicken. Potatoes running all over the place. Pete responded with a great deal of compassion. That must be difficult. Yeah, and you can't trust a fart when you're 95, Uncle Jeffrey said unexpectedly, almost like he was bragging, looking as if he wanted Pete to be taking notes. Pete gently stood up and took a step back as Uncle Jeffrey's head slumped forward and to the right. One of his grandchildren came over and explained that her grandfather needed to take frequent naps. Mary came to Pete's rescue and escorted her bewildered husband back to a couple of vacant chairs along the far wall. The two sat and watched the activities for a few minutes. Finally, Mary put her hand on Pete's wrist. You can't give that speech, Pete, she said quietly. Pete had practiced the speech on Mary the night before. She had listened, only listened. He had tried to convey his truth, his pent-up pain. It had been easier to do in the quiet of his study room in Inglewood. It was different here. He had written that he was tired of hearing the phrase, they did the best they could. That being mean was being mean, no matter what generation you came from. He had thought that if he could write that speech in a thoughtful way, in a clever way, it would what? That speech was only meant for you, Mary said while looking around the room. Maybe it could have been spoken 30 years ago, but not today, Pete. She watched Andrew and Betty conversing with people close to the pool table. Peter nodded and tapped his shirt pocket where the speech now felt heavy. He knew she was right. Pete squeezed his wife's hand. I think maybe I've been holding on to this letter for a long, long time, Pete conceded, now looking over at Mary. Sharon strolled up to her parents. The cake has arrived, she said cheerfully, and then noticed her parents' demeanor. Is everything all right? Before they could assure her that it was, there was a stir, a loud grunt from the wheelchair as Uncle Jeff recovered from his short nap. "It's my birthday," he announced. "Let's sing happy birthday." Aunt Margaret, his faithful wife of 67 years at his side, gently told him that she thought they had already sung happy birthday, twice, in fact. But Uncle Jeffrey wasn't having any of that, and he insisted, "It's my birthday. It's my birthday." Pete watched as some of the cousins quickly invited folks to sing happy birthday one more time, and everyone gathered, and everyone sang. This third time, the rendition was even more spirited because, well, they knew the deal. And great roars of rip, rip, hip, hip, hooray, all over again. And perhaps, Betty mused, they would perfect the song next time around. Who knows? Uncle Jeffrey was enormously delighted. His smile was like one that could be put on a postcard. A grand cake was rolled into the room from the foyer. The attendant standing at the entrance, arms folded. The cake was topped with red icing, dotted with dozens of gleaming cherries, their stems protruding like hands raised in a kindergarten class. "I've never heard of cherry cake before," Andrew whispered to Betty. "And the size of it. Look, it's huge." Betty grinned. "I heard it's Uncle Jeffrey's favorite, and yeah, I'd say you're probably in for 3 slices, minimum." The elderly siblings, all in their 90s, all of them still with their spouses of 60-plus years, were seated and served first, Uncle Jeffrey at the head of the line. The ceremony completed, the younger generations dug in under the watchful eye of one of Aunt Hilda's offspring. Pete had already taken his first bite when he heard a sob from the other side of the room, where the senior generations were indulging in a semicircle. It came from 94-year-old Aunt Margaret. She was weeping. "She spilled," Uncle Jeffrey was announcing cheerfully. Like a mind of its own, a slice of cherry cake had somehow attempted a brazen escape. Scaling over the ridges of her plate, had slid off, diving headfirst onto her blouse before rolling for cover onto the floor under Uncle Phil's chair. Aunt Margaret whimpered like a 6-year-old, ashamed, unable to raise her head. One of the cousins was already scrambling to scrape up the escapee, giving Aunt Margaret a Kleenex, assuring her, "It's okay, Mommy, it's okay." It was at that moment that Pete made a final decision about the speech. It suddenly became as clear in his mind, as vivid as his first goal with that duct-taped hockey stick some 35 years ago. He walked across the room to Aunt Margaret and crouched down, putting his hand gently on her knee. He asked her to look up at him. What she saw startled her, and her mouth rounded like a big letter O. It wasn't exactly the response Pete was expecting. Aunt Margaret's capital O turned quickly into a smile, and then she broke into a snicker. "You spilled on your shirt," she whispered, giggling. "And it's all over your shirt. It's even dripping a little bit." Sure enough, red icing was smudged on Pete's shirt in the same place Aunt Margaret had smudged hers. "We're both spillers," Pete giggled. Pete got up, put his arm around her shoulders, and turned, presenting to the world two red-stained individuals. And in moments, they were not the only ones giggling.
In as it could be, waiting for the time when all is well. Everyone beneath the watching pine tree, and still feels warm despite the chill. The sound of music through the hallways, and the lights are brighter than they were before. And we are all gathered in a new place, where there's no need for hiding anymore. Maybe next year things will finally be that way. Maybe next year things will finally have changed. All of that could be just one Christmas away, where things will finally be okay. Tell me, when will things be okay? Maybe next year Christmas Day.
It wasn't until the car was bypassing Red Deer when someone brought it up. The family had been one of the last to leave Evergreen Gardens. Pete's mom begging them to stay a few more minutes, every 30 minutes or so. So Pete began asking the kids to put their devices down for a few minutes. "Now that you've met Uncle Jeffrey, and well, many members of my extended family, cousins, what did you make of it? Glad you came? Or before you say anything, I just wanted to say again how grateful I am that you all came. It was great to have you by my side. I'm proud of you guys." Andrew looked up and offered something first. "I liked everyone, I guess," Andrew said. "But your speech, Dad, wasn't really much of anything, really. You had talked about it all week, and all you said was, 'Happy birthday' again. And you know that we sang that song 4 times?" Sharon laughed. "One of the cousins said that they sang it twice before we even got there." "Okay, 6 times then," Andrew nodded. "But Dad, a happy birthday, nice to see everyone. And that was pretty much your speech." "It was a lame speech, Dad," Betty agreed. "Your mom was disappointed, I could tell." But the cake was pretty amazing, Andrew said. I had 2 slices. More than at least 3, Sharon corrected. In the rearview mirror, Pete saw the kids drop their heads onto their phones and quickly made another attempt at a conversation. I wonder what you guys will say about Mom and me when you tell your kids about us. Are we, if I may ask, are we good parents, do you think? Well, how are we supposed to know? Sharon was quick off the draw. It's not like we had got six sets of parents to compare with. Andrew agreed. We got stuck with this. Sharon nodded. And what happens if we don't like it? Like I said, Andrew shrugged. We got stuck with this. Mary laughed. Well, fair enough, she said. Your father asked, so. But one thing I'd like to say, I'm glad we got stuck with you 3. Really? Pete responded. Even Andrew? Pete smiled, looking again at the rearview mirror, but all the kids, all of them, were already back on their phones. And now we come to the most exciting part of the evening, where we get to first distribute the candles and then light them up. And I always do that too quickly every year, and I do want to say a few things. I want to thank a few people, if you don't mind. Because I always forget this, and I'm always irritated. When I get home, I said, so I'm going to do it this year. One is to thank the band. Especially, I want to thank Jonathan for writing that song from scratch. That's pretty cool. And the band members. You know what's really Aussie about an evening like this was our dress rehearsal. We get to do this once. If we were to do it again now, we would do it completely different. But we got one shot at this. So thank you guys for joining Jonathan and helping out there. I want to thank, who's been working really hard the whole time. She hasn't seen a thing because she's a little bit rude. She's had her back towards us the whole time. And that's the painters, Samantha. I really want to thank her. When you get a second, check out her work. Samantha, turn around. What do you look like? Oh, that's what she looks like. Yeah. I want to thank the dancers who did their best to interpret Jonathan's song. And I'm sure if they were sitting there, Ed, can we do that again? I said, no, you get one shot, that's it. It's over. But they did great. And the actors who came up here and had been bugging them for months for exactly 5 seconds of being in the spotlight, and that's it. That's all we can take. I do, just a reminder about the Italian bread and these stuffies. If you are under 10, you got to take 2, because I hear stuffies get really nervous in the dark on their own. So you got to take 2, even 3 if your parents let you. I want to thank Acapella Road a second. I want you to give them some love, and then I want to say something about them. All right? Can we thank them? They're up there somewhere. So last year, I thought this would be our last BackPorch, and I was kind of serious about that. And then this summer, Acapella Road contacted me, and they said, so when's BackPorch? When's the date? I said, it's August, for Pete's sakes. Don't. They said, no, we'd like to participate. And so when is it? I said, it's the last Sunday before Christmas. And I said, okay, we've marked it down, and then click. So what just happened there? But I want to thank them for that, because I needed that nudge. And I'm grateful for that nudge. And then I want to say, there's so many artists in this room, songwriters and writers and painters and dancers and actors and theater people. And they all need a nudge because they are as insecure as I am. Like, I'm not Stuart McLean. Who do I think I am? And yet, I got that encouragement and that little nudge. So here at the Lantern, we've got this beautiful space. They don't make them like this anymore. So what we want to say to the artists, for the songwriter who's looking for that perfect chord, and to the painter that's looking for that perfect stroke, or the writer that's trying to string these words together, and they say, I can't do this, and we just want to say, and to the dancers who are looking for that perfect roll. I don't know how dancers do that. I don't know what's going on up there, but they all have that craft, and we just want to say at the Lantern, we've got this beautiful space, and we want to have a posture of yes, of encouragement, like Acapella Road gave to me. We want to give to the artists in this community. Consider the Lantern. We'll do the best we can to get you up here and encourage you to find that stroke. Okay, so now something very strange is going to happen. If you thought, oh, this was strange, just wait. We're about to, Jonathan's going to play 2 songs, and during the first song, we would like you to find a candle. And they're all over the place. They're back there. There's tons up here. There's tons up there. And we want you to find one and grab one, but it isn't yours. So you're going to get one. It's going to be mayhem. It's going to be people are going to be trampling over each other. It's a mess. The fire department is not going to. Anyway, so we're all going to grab one. It's not yours because we want you to find someone with a stain on, and we want you to go to them and say, I see your stain. And you know what? They probably will say to you, I see yours. But the gesture is to approach somebody with a stain on and say, I'd like to give you this candle. And consider it a candle of a mercy or grace or something along that line, whatever you can conjure up in your mind. I know I have some hockey buddies here that I have hacked and yelled at and slashed. I need about eight candles just for me to give to them. I'm so glad that they're here. So at the close of that first song, hopefully you've got your candle and you've given it to somebody, maybe your spouse that you've had a quarrel with. We're all stained. We're all stained. And yet we're all part of this community. So this grace that we give each other is huge. Then at the beginning of the second song, we would like to light the candle. There's people with, what do you call those things? Igniters? And they're going to light the candle. And then that second song, we're just going to let that song just waft over us with holding our candles, if that's okay. At the end of the second song, we'll blow them out, and people with boxes will be standing around. You can't even go then. Then Jonathan's going to close this up, and you still can't go because we've got some really cool treats for you that are related to cherry cake. So you're going to have to stay for that. It's going to be cool. But so I'm going to get off the stage. Jonathan, so we're going to have the lights up a little bit. As you find your candles, it'll take 2 or 3 minutes. Find a candle and then start looking for someone that you've slashed this year and give it to them. You got a good 2-3 minutes, so you don't have to hurry. There's a lot up here. There's a lot. And there's some back there. And up in the balcony, there's a ton. I didn't think you were going to come. I'm so glad you're here.
Long lay the world in sin and error binding, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. The thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born, oh, night divine, oh, night divine. Truly he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise, we let all within us praise his holy name. Christ is the Lord. Praise his name forever. His power and glory, the more proclaim his power and glory, the more proclaim.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, around yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds call round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Thanks everyone so much for coming. We're so glad to have you. Please be careful with your candles as you blow them out, because this whole building is made of wood. If you want to stick around for a while, there's going to be conversation, there's going to be things around. We'd love to chat with you, but if you have to go, that's all right too. But Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for coming. Thanks for taking a chance on this, because you never know what you're going to get, right? It's kind of weird.
Don't
Sort
turn
of
us off
my-
yet.
my-
We got one more. You guys ready? All right.
There we go.
2, 3.
I really can't
Stay
stay.
outside.
I've got to go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
This evening has
Been
been
hoping that you'd
so
drop in.
very nice.
I'll hold your hands, they're just like
I'm
I.
on a